What if the reason most people stay in debt for years longer than they need to isn't a lack of willpower? It's that nobody ever explained the actual mechanics of how debt payoff works. Once you understand what's happening under the hood, the path out of debt becomes a lot clearer. Today, we're breaking down the science and psychology behind the two most effective debt elimination strategies ever documented. To understand how to get out of debt fast, you first need to understand why debt is designed to keep you in it. When you carry a balance on a credit card or a personal loan, you're charged interest on the outstanding principal. But here's the part most people don't fully grasp. That interest gets added to your balance, and then you're charged interest on that new, higher balance. This is compound interest working against you, the mirror image of how it builds wealth in an investment account. A credit card with a 22% annual percentage rate, which is close to the current US average, charges roughly 1.83% per month on whatever you owe. On a $5,000 balance, that's about $91 in interest in the very first month alone. If you make only the minimum payment, typically around 2% of the balance, or about $100, you've barely moved the needle. Almost all of that payment went to the bank, not to shrinking your debt. This is why people making consistent minimum payments on a $5,000 credit card balance can find themselves still paying it off more than 15 years later. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed, just not in your favor. Researchers and financial educators have studied debt repayment strategies for decades, and from a purely mathematical standpoint, one approach consistently wins: the debt avalanche. Here's how it works. You list all of your debts: credit cards, personal loans, car payments, whatever you carry, and you rank them from highest interest rate to lowest. You continue making the minimum required payment on every single debt except the one at the top of your list, the highest rate debt. Every extra dollar you can free up goes toward that top debt. Once it's eliminated, you take the full amount you were putting toward it and roll it into the next highest rate debt. You keep cascading that payment power down the list until everything is gone. The reason this works so efficiently is rooted in basic arithmetic. High interest debt is the most expensive debt you own. Every dollar you put toward a 24% APR credit card before paying down a 6% car loan saves you 18 cents per dollar per year. Over the months or years it takes to pay off a significant balance, that difference compounds into hundreds or even thousands of dollars in interest charges you never have to pay. Historical analysis of consumer debt payoff data consistently shows the avalanche saves more money than any other sequencing strategy. Here's where it gets really interesting, because humans are not purely rational calculators, and the math-optimal strategy isn't always the one people actually stick with. In the early 2000s, behavioral economists began studying why so many people abandoned debt repayment plans despite having the income to execute them. What they found was striking. A landmark study published in the Journal of Marketing Research found that people who focused on paying off their smallest debts first, regardless of interest rate, were significantly more likely to eliminate all of their debt than those who followed the mathematically optimal high-rate first approach. This strategy became known as the debt snowball, popularized in personal finance circles by educators like Dave Ramsey. The mechanics are simple. Rank debts from smallest balance to largest, ignore interest rates, and throw everything extra at the smallest one first. When it's gone, roll that payment to the next. The psychological engine here is what researchers call goal progress motivation. Every time you cross a debt off your list, your brain registers a genuine win. Dopamine is released, momentum builds, and if you're finding this useful, hit the like button. It genuinely helps more people discover content like this. The snowball trades a small amount of mathematical efficiency for a massive boost in behavioral follow-through, and for many people, that trade is absolutely worth it. Whether you choose the avalanche or the snowball, both methods are turbocharged by the same underlying mechanic, increasing the gap between what you earn and what you spend, then directing every bit of that gap toward debt. This is worth understanding at a structural level. When you make an extra payment on a debt, you're not just paying down a balance. You're permanently reducing the principal that future interest is calculated on. That has a compounding effect in your favor. On a $10,000 personal loan at 12% APR with a 5-year term, making just one extra $200 payment in the first year reduces your total interest paid by more than the $200 itself, because that money no longer sits in the principal column generating charges month after month. Financial historians often point to the period after World War II as a case study in collective debt elimination. Household debt levels in the U.S. had surged during the war years, and the economic expansion of the late 1940s and 1950s saw millions of families systematically pay down balances by combining income growth with disciplined extra payments, essentially running the Avalanche Method at a national scale. The pattern that worked then works the same way today. More income, minus less spending, applied consistently and directionally, eliminates debt faster than any single financial product or trick. Here's the core takeaway from everything we covered today. Debt persists not because people are careless, but because compound interest is a powerful force, and most of us were never taught how it works against us. The Avalanche Method is the mathematically optimal way to minimize total interest paid. The Snowball Method is psychologically optimized to keep you motivated and on track. Both approaches work, and both work faster the more you understand the underlying mechanics driving them. The choice between them isn't about which one is correct. It's about knowing yourself well enough to pick the system you'll actually stick with for the months or years it takes to cross the finish line. If you want to keep learning about how money actually works, the mechanics, the history, and the psychology behind it, subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Every video we make is designed to give you the understanding that most people never get.